Hey everyone, and welcome back to Speak More Fluently. Sometimes you feel like you've got a really good grasp of English grammar and you've got the vocab down, but like those everyday conversations, just chatting with people still feels a little well stiff.
Mm.
Or maybe you just like totally clam up when you're trying to, just connect with someone casually.
Yeah.
Well, if that sounds familiar, you're in the right place because today we're going deep on the art of everyday conversation.
Yeah.
It's that seemingly unimportant small talk that actually plays a huge role in helping you build relationships, boosting your confidence, and really like greasing the wheels to help you become a more fluent speaker.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to explore why these little interactions are way more important than you think. And most importantly, we're going to give you some practical and easy-to-use strategies to navigate them like a pro.
Yeah.
Trust me, mastering this is going to unlock a whole new level of connection and confidence in your English speaking journey.
It really is amazing, isn't it? I mean, these little everyday exchanges that we have, they often get overlooked.
Yeah.
But they're really fundamental to how we communicate and how we connect.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at how these conversations, which might seem light or superficial on the surface, are actually crucial for deeper connections.
Yeah.
And for really embedding your language skills, out there in the real world.
Okay, so let's get right to it. Why is this small talk so important? I mean, isn't it just killing time until you get to the real conversation?
Well, think about it this way. When you meet someone new, right, or even when you just bump into a colleague at work, what's the first thing that happens?
Yeah.
There's usually that brief exchange.
Right.
A way to kind of break the ice.
Yeah.
Small talk is that icebreaker.
Yeah.
It's how we move from simply existing in the same space to actually connecting as people.
Yeah.
And it lowers those initial social barriers that we all kind of put up.
Right.
That
That makes perfect sense. It's like a gentle ramp leading into, maybe more meaningful interactions.
Exactly. And it's not just about starting conversations. It's the bedrock for building rapport.
Yeah.
Those initial light exchanges, they help us kind of gauge each other, find common ground.
Right.
And establish a sense of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the foundation upon which you build stronger personal and professional relationships.
And for our listeners who are focusing on speaking more fluently, this has got to be incredibly valuable practice, right?
Oh, absolutely crucial. These everyday scenarios are where you encounter and use the most common vocabulary and expressions.
Yeah.
It's real world practice. It goes way beyond textbooks and memorizing lists of words.
Right.
It's about hearing how native speakers naturally use the language, the intonation, the flow, all of those nuances that truly solidify your fluency.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So knowing all the grammar rules is one thing.
Yeah.
But actually putting those rules and that vocabulary into practice in a relaxed everyday setting, that's where the magic happens.
Right.
And I bet it does wonders for easing anxiety in new situations, too.
It can be a significant confidence booster. Starting with a simple low-stakes conversation in a new environment,
All right.
It can make you feel more comfortable and less intimidated.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to just dip your toes in the water before you, dive into deeper interactions.
Right. So we're clear on why it's so important.
Mhm.
Now, how do we actually get good at it?
Mm-hmm.
What are some go-to strategies to kick things off?
Well, a good entry point is often finding a universal topic,
Okay.
something almost anyone can relate to and comment on easily.
Give us some examples of those reliable conversation starters.
Well, the weather is a classic for a reason.
Right.
Saying something like, lovely day, isn't it? Or, can you believe how cold it's gotten? It immediately establishes this shared experience.
Yeah.
It's neutral. It's something we all experience.
Right.
And it's a very low-stakes entry point into interaction.
True. You can't really go wrong with the weather. What else is usually a safe bet?
Hobbies are another excellent avenue. Asking, what do you enjoy doing in your free time? Or, have you been up to anything interesting lately? It shows genuine interest and can often uncover shared passions.
Yeah.
People generally enjoy talking about the things that they like to do.
Definitely. And it opens the door to finding those common interests, which can lead to other topics.
Exactly. Local events can also be great. Did you hear about the festival happening next week? Or have you tried that new coffee shop on Main Street?
Yeah.
Things that connect you to a shared community. And travel is almost always engaging. Have you been on any interesting trips recently? Or, I'm planning a getaway. Do you have any recommendations?
These all seem like pretty easy and non-threatening topics to start with.
Yeah.
What makes them so effective beyond just being common?
They're universal. Almost everyone has some experience with them or an opinion about them.
Right.
They're also low pressure. They don't require any deep expertise or delving into potentially sensitive areas.
Right.
They're simply springboards for further conversation.
Okay, so you've thrown out one of these great starters. What keeps the ball rolling after that initial comment?
Right.
You can't just talk about the weather for an hour.
Absolutely. The other vital component is active listening and thoughtful responding.
Okay.
Conversation is a dynamic exchange.
So it's not just about waiting for my turn to speak,
Yeah,
but truly engaging with what the other person is saying.
precisely. Active listening involves showing genuine attention.
Mhm.
And this includes maintaining eye contact, nodding, to indicate that you're following along and using short affirmative responses like, really, or that's interesting.
Yeah.
These little cues signal to the other person that you're engaged and that you value what they're saying.
Those small nonverbal confirmations really do make a difference in making someone feel heard, don't they?
They do. And to encourage a more in-depth response and keep the conversation going beyond those initial reactions, it's powerful to use open-ended questions.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Closed questions are kind of like a dead end. They often only invite a yes or no response. Open-ended questions, on the other hand, are like an invitation to explore, prompting much richer and more engaging answers.
Ah, I see the distinction.
Yeah.
So instead of, did you enjoy your vacation, I should ask, what was the highlight of your vacation?
Exactly.
Okay. What if you don't quite catch something someone says? Is it okay to ask them to repeat themselves?
Oh, absolutely. It's perfectly fine.
Okay.
It actually shows that you're invested in understanding what they have to say. Phrases like, could you say that again? Or, sorry, I didn't quite catch that, are perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
You could also say, could you explain that a little more? You know, it demonstrates your engagement and your desire to follow the conversation.
Good to know it's not impolite to seek clarification. So we've initiated the conversation, we're actively listening, and we're using these open-ended questions. How do we prevent those awkward silences and keep the flow going naturally?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it just seems to hit a wall.
It's a common feeling. One helpful strategy is to have a mental toolkit of potential topics that you can introduce if the conversation starts to lull.
Okay.
Now, these don't need to be drastic shifts.
Right.
They can be related to something that's already been mentioned.
Yeah.
Or a new but still lighthearted subject.
So a gentle pivot rather than an abrupt change of direction.
Exactly. Sharing brief, relevant personal anecdotes can also inject some life into the conversation and make it more relatable. The key here is to keep them concise and to make sure that they connect to the current topic without dominating the exchange.
Right. Short and sweet and focused on connection rather than just talking about myself.
Yes.
And I suppose showing genuine curiosity about what the other person is saying is paramount.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People can sense when you're truly interested in what they have to say.
Right.
Ask follow-up questions that build on what they've shared and demonstrate that you value their experiences and perspectives.
This is all incredibly practical. Now, it's not just about the words we speak, is it?
Right.
Our body language and tone must play a significant role, too.
Absolutely. Nonverbal cues can communicate just as much, if not more, than your spoken words, particularly in conveying warmth and approachability.
Like what specifically? What nonverbal signals should we be mindful of?
Oh, your posture is key. An open posture, avoiding crossed arms or legs, signals that you are receptive and engaged.
Okay.
While you know sometimes crossing your arms might just be comfortable.
Yeah.
In a new interaction, it can subconsciously signal closed-offness, potentially hindering connection.
That's a really insightful point. What about our facial expressions?
Facial expressions are incredibly important. Smiling and maintaining a relaxed expression creates a welcoming atmosphere and makes you appear more approachable. A genuine smile can instantly put people at ease.
Makes perfect sense. A smile truly is universal. And our voice, the way we speak, also contributes, doesn't it?
Definitely. Your tone of voice should be friendly and encouraging.
Okay.
And adjusting your volume and pace to suit the context and the mood of the conversation is vital as well. Speaking too loudly or too quickly can be off-putting.
Right. And even small movements like nodding or leaning in slightly.
Yeah, simple gestures like nodding to show you're listening attentively or leaning slightly forward to indicate interest. These can subtly but effectively enhance your communication and demonstrate engagement.
So it's a whole symphony of communication.
It really is.
Words, body language, facial expressions, and tone all working together.
Yes.
Now let's consider specific situations. What about making small talk in the workplace?
Yeah.
That can sometimes feel a bit formal or even forced.
Yeah. Workplace small talk is crucial for building professional relationships and fostering a positive work environment. Starting with neutral and generally safe topics is usually the best approach.
Back to the weather again. It
Yeah.
seems universally safe.
The weather is always a reliable starting point, as are discussions about recent events, non-controversial events,
Right.
or weekend plans. It's generally wise to avoid more personal or potentially sensitive subjects in a professional setting,
Right.
especially in initial interactions.
Good advice. You don't want to accidentally overstep or make someone uncomfortable. What else should we keep in mind when chatting with colleagues?
Being respectful of your colleague's time is paramount.
Okay.
If you notice someone is busy or deeply focused on a task, keep your small talk brief and to the point.
Absolutely. Being mindful of their workload is key. How do you find things to talk about with people you work with, especially if you don't know them well outside of work?
Look for common ground related to your shared professional environment.
Okay.
Perhaps there's a recent company announcement or a project that you're both involved in, or a general interest in the industry.
Uh-huh.
These shared experiences can create a natural connection. You might also discover shared hobbies or interests outside of work,
Right.
but it's best to start with neutral work-related topics.
And in today's diverse workplaces, we need to be particularly aware of different cultural norms, right?
Absolutely. Respecting cultural differences is essential. Be mindful that what might be considered an acceptable topic in one culture could be inappropriate in another. Avoid jokes or remarks that might not translate well or could be misinterpreted. It's always best to err on the side of caution with neutral topics.
So sensitivity and awareness are key in a professional setting. It sounds like workplace small talk is really about building camaraderie and fostering a positive team dynamic.
Precisely. It helps build your internal network, and it can even lead to unexpected professional opportunities down the line.
Now, for many of our listeners who are actively learning English, the prospect of engaging in small talk can be quite nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Conversation anxiety is a very real challenge. What advice do you have for managing those nerves?
The most effective way to combat anxiety is through consistent practice.
Yeah.
The more you actively engage in conversational situations, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
Right.
Role-playing with a language partner or in a language exchange group can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
It creates this supportive, low-pressure environment to practice.
Practice makes perfect, as they say. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Right.
What about preparing mentally beforehand?
Thinking about potential conversation starters or questions before entering a social situation can significantly ease anxiety.
Okay.
Even having a few go-to phrases in mind can make you feel more prepared and less likely to freeze up.
That's a fantastic tip, having a little mental cheat sheet ready to go. And what about starting with smaller, less intimidating interactions?
Absolutely. Begin with brief, low-stakes exchanges such as a quick chat with a barista, a shop assistant, or even just offering a friendly greeting to someone you pass on the street.
Okay.
Gradually work your way up to longer conversations as your confidence grows.
That sounds much more manageable than immediately trying to have a deep philosophical discussion.
Right.
And what if you stumble over your words or make grammatical errors? That's a major fear for many language learners.
It's absolutely crucial to view mistakes as an inherent part of the learning journey.
Yeah?
Most people are understanding and will appreciate your effort to communicate in a language that isn't your native tongue. Don't allow the fear of making errors to prevent you from practicing and improving.
That's really encouraging to hear. So practice consistently. Prepare a few opening lines, start with small interactions, and don't let the fear of mistakes hold you back.
Yeah.
What are some common obstacles people encounter in small talk, and how can we overcome them?
One frequent obstacle is the discomfort many people feel with silence.
Yeah.
People often perceive pauses in conversation as awkward or negative.
Oh, I definitely know that feeling. That silence can feel like an eternity.
But it's important to reframe those pauses as natural moments for reflection.
Okay.
Use them to gather your thoughts or to process what's just been said.
Right.
If a silence does become prolonged, you can always gently introduce a new topic or ask a follow-up question to reignite the conversation.
So silence isn't necessarily a conversational dead end. That's a good perspective to keep in mind. Another significant barrier for language learners, of course, is language limitations.
Yeah, if you feel your vocabulary or grammar is limited, focus on using simple, clear language and constructing shorter sentences.
Right.
Clarity and effective communication are far more important than attempting complex structures that you're not yet comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hesitate to politely ask for clarification if you don't understand something, and make an effort to learn common phrases and expressions frequently used in everyday small talk.
Simple and clear communication is the key. And as we discussed earlier, cultural differences can also present a challenge.
Absolutely. Before engaging in conversation with someone from a different cultural background, it's always beneficial to do a little research on local customs and communication styles.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how native speakers interact and try to adapt your approach accordingly. When in doubt, sticking to neutral and universally acceptable topics is always a safe bet.
Being observant and respectful of cultural nuances is so important. Now let's get down to some really actionable steps. What are some daily exercises we can incorporate to actively improve our small talk abilities?
Making a conscious effort to greet people you encounter with a smile and a simple hello or good morning, even if it's just a brief interaction with a neighbor or someone at the store, is a fantastic starting point.
Okay.
Consider keeping a language journal specifically for noting down new phrases or expressions that you hear during conversations, and actively practice using them in your own interactions.
A dedicated journal for small talk phrases. That's a brilliant idea. What else can we do on a regular basis?
Actively listen to podcasts, watch videos, or follow social media content that showcases natural, everyday English conversations.
Okay.
Pay close attention to how native speakers initiate conversations, maintain that flow, and gracefully bring them to a close.
Uh-huh.
And as we mentioned before, role-playing everyday scenarios with a language partner or tutor is an invaluable way to build confidence and fluency in these situations.
So immerse yourself in natural conversation, observe closely, and practice those real-world interactions. What about our overall mindset when we approach these conversations? That has to have an impact.
Cultivating a positive mindset can make a world of difference. Remind yourself that most people are generally friendly and open to a brief chat.
Yeah.
Set small, achievable goals for yourself, such as initiating one short conversation each day.
Okay.
And most importantly, acknowledge and celebrate your successes, no matter how small they may seem.
Right.
Every positive interaction is a step forward.
Positive self-talk and celebrating those little wins, that's great advice that applies to so much more than just language learning. Finally, do you have any additional tips for navigating small talk in different social settings?
In social events like parties or gatherings, make it a point to introduce yourself with a simple, "Hi, I'm your name." You can also use your immediate surroundings as a conversation starter.
Okay.
Perhaps comment on the music, the food, the decor, and ask open-ended follow-up questions like, "What brings you to this event tonight?"
Easy and natural ways to connect in a social environment. What about in more public places like a coffee shop or while waiting in line?
In public spaces, you can make a brief observation about something interesting you notice around you.
Okay.
Maintain open body language and a friendly smile to signal that you're approachable.
Yeah.
Even a short positive exchange can create a pleasant connection and a little practice.
And in our increasingly digital world, so much of our communication happens online. Any tips for digital small talk?
In online chats or video calls, utilize emojis thoughtfully to help convey tone and emotion, as the nonverbal cues we rely on in person are absent.
Yeah.
Keep casual online conversations relatively light and choose your words carefully to avoid potential misunderstandings.
So adapt your approach to the specific context. This has been such a comprehensive and helpful dive into the world of small talk. To bring it all together, what are the most important things you want our listeners to take away from this discussion?
The key is to recognize that small talk is not just trivial chatter. It's a fundamental skill for building relationships, enhancing your English fluency in practical everyday situations, and confidently navigating social and professional environments. Remember the strategies we've discussed. Utilizing universal conversation starters.
Right.
Actively listening and asking open-ended questions.
Yeah.
Being aware of your nonverbal communication.
Right.
And adapting your approach to different settings.
And the most crucial thing is to practice regularly and not be afraid to put yourself out there. Every single interaction, no matter how brief, is a valuable opportunity for growth and connection.
Exactly. So here's a final thought for you. View every interaction, no matter how seemingly insignificant, as a chance to learn, connect, and build your confidence on your journey to speaking more fluently. The next time you have an opportunity, try using one of the conversation starters or active listening techniques we explored today and observe the impact it has. You might be surprised by the positive connections you make and how much more comfortable you feel expressing yourself in English.
Thanks for listening to Speak More Fluently, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.